Yeah, I know, it's always a little funny standing up. Okay, I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to
To the flag
Flag
of the United States of America
America,
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for
for
all.
all.
Super. Thanks, everybody. Okay, so meeting minutes. This is not from last night, but from the month before, February 17th. Any comments? Okay, once again, Trish does a great job for us. All in favor of approval? Aye.
Aye.
Great, that's everyone. Super. So looking at the list, we've got new grading permits here. And let's see, no trees to be removed, but I assume we will talk to these properties. Okay, so do we have anybody here from 794 Newtown Road?
So we just took them off. Steve asked me to take them off of the agenda very late this afternoon. So
Okay.
That was one of those pre-review ones. There's no trees coming down on the site. There's no replacement trees. There's no trees being removed. It's a pool. There's tree protection fence up. So I didn't see the reason to bring them before this committee.
You're right, Steve.
Yeah.
You're right. I went by. It looked totally benign for us.
Okay, super. Any chance that's the same with 16 Doyle Road?
No.
Okay, so is anyone here from 16 Doyle Road?
Colin Whalen.
I heard Colin Whalen, I think.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, super. Hey, welcome. So,
Thank you.
Ian, if you can pull up Colin's plans, and then Colin, I don't know if you've been here before.
I have.
Oh, okay, then you probably know the lay of the land. If you
So
just
if you go
get
to page 2 of 10, you'll see existing trees noted. And we have an existing. Well, we'll stay with Doyle Road, which is the new subdivided lot.
Mhm.
There's 2 existing 15-inch trees and 1 existing 6-inch tree. And they're scheduled to remain, and we're planning to add 8 new street trees. And if you go to page 4 of 10, you'll see those listed.
So Colin, are you removing any trees?
We are not, but I wanted to get your opinion of the 3 existing trees. If I could share my screen and show the pictures, we would be willing to, remove and replace in kind if you're willing. If not, then we will leave them in place as is.
Colin, where are you going to have your ingress and egress for your construction?
So there's a rock construction entrance to be placed at the existing driveway location off of Doyle.
Then I would get rid of that one tree next to the driveway. It's not going to make it. It's too close, and it's not a great tree.
That was my concern, Matt.
Yeah, I just replace that tree and put it somewhere else. Yeah, plenty of space. Other places you could put it.
And then the other 2 trees that are on that lot. The one is it appears it was either damaged in storm or pruned at one point, but it appears that the top is completely gone.
Mhm.
Yeah, the crown's really in bad shape.
Yeah. So I didn't know what you wanted to do with that.
I think you're going to lose that tree sooner than later, so I would replace it.
I could, if you want, I could share my screen and show you an image of those 2 trees I'm referencing, or.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, that would be great.
How
And
do
if
I
you
do
can
that?
remind
Share
us-
screen?
Yeah, it should be down like at 6 o'clock on your Zoom screen.
They're both the 15-inch caliper trees, right?
Yeah, one's 15 and one's 6. Do you see them?
Yeah.
Yes,
And they're kind of like interweaved together.
yeah.
So we'll do whatever you want. They're scheduled to remain, but we would replace with the proposed street trees that we already have on plan if you'd like that. So that would mean we would have 11 new trees for Doyle.
Right. And Colin, it's really up to you because the 3 trees that you are considering taking down wouldn't typically hit our radar screen because the ordinance, the trigger is more than 5 trees, or if one tree is a heritage tree, 30 inches in diameter or larger.
Sure.
So this is perfect. I mean, we're happy to give you advice, and it's great that Matt has seen it. So you can follow those recommendations if you like, and then it's up to you if you want to replace 3 trees with 3 trees in kind, in addition to the 8 that you're already putting in. That would be up to you.
Well,
I mean, those trees are within the utility interface. I mean, they're going to be subject to pruning every 5 years or so. That one should
Welcome to
definitely.
Zoom.
and
Enter your meeting
we're also
ID
adding a
followed by
sidewalk along Doyle from the corner of Conestoga to the driveway. So they're also may be impacted by that construction as well.
Yeah.
I would recommend condemning those trees for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then the next question is 11 too strong for this 11,499 square foot lot, or is 11 okay for you guys?
Well, I think Colin, you can mix some nice trees in there, crepe myrtles, smaller trees. You know, you don't have to have 11 white oaks. So it's like, I would go for the flowering trees. I think you have that nice corner lot, and like you said, you're gonna have a sidewalk, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And Matt, I assume you would do a mix, right? Large canopy, small canopy.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of a layered.
Yeah. So
layered-
some of
that's
these trees,
better diversity.
some of these trees are required by the land development ordinance. That's why the street trees are there.
Yep.
Right.
That's Rosaldo. Yep.
So the trees Colin, Mr. Whalen had mentioned were part of the requirement of land development. So the street trees,
Mhm.
whichever variety, need to stay where they were shown on the approved plans, and then whatever other ones the Shade Tree Commission comes up with, go anywhere on the lot.
So should I work with John on those 3 replacement trees on what you guys would like to see for those, or?
Yeah,
how
just
would you
send
want me-
it to me, and I'll tie Matt into the species selection, and then we'll give you the green light.
All right, great. And then if we're done with Doyle, 147 Conestoga, which is the existing twin, has an existing to remain, which is in good shape, in my opinion. And then there's one new proposed street tree for that lot as well. And that could be seen on page 4 of 10.
Let's just check the tree protection to make sure it's there, obviously.
Yeah, that we do document tree protection.
Got it.
And it looks good on the plan. I agree with Colin. That tree on 147 is in pretty good shape.
And that will not be affected by the new driveway being placed for that property.
Got it.
Okay, so I would say to make this official, let's at least just vote on the 16 Doyle Road, where 3 trees would be coming out, 8 are going in for the land ordinance. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yeah. Yeah. And Trish, maybe just with the stipulation that this doesn't really fall under the ordinance, or it doesn't trigger the ordinance, I should say. Okay, good.
And also, Eileen, they've received preliminary approval from planning.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Okay.
So Mr. Whalen, on another issue, you and me need to meet,
Okay,
right? We spoke about a week and a half ago. We need to make that meeting happen. So just while I have you here, I need to remind you of that.
okay. I did reach out to Patricia and said I could not meet when we did, originally discuss, but then I never heard, so.
All right, so try to, I'm gonna reach out to you for Friday. We need to take care of this, so I won't take up any more shade tree time, but we definitely need to meet.
Okay, understood.
Okay, great. Colin, anything else?
No, ma'am.
Okay, great. Have a nice evening.
All right, thank you.
Okay. 0 Deep Dean Road. Never heard of anybody living on number 0. Anybody here from Deep Dean Road?
Eileen, they came before us in January,
Okay.
and we didn't have any major problems with what they presented, except they didn't have a planning schedule,
Mhm.
and they didn't have a chart.
I don't believe they had I don't think they had tree protection as well.
I don't remember that, but all I know is in reviewing the tape, we sent them away and said, come back in a month and have those two things. So
Okay.
they do have that now.
Trish, can you see the chat? Russ just said Joe did not receive an invite to this meeting.
Okay.
Okay, well, he was on the list. Ian, can you,
We'll look to catch him next month.
well, let's see if we can get him on here.
Hold on 1 second. I think Russ, you were on here on his behalf?
I just wanted to comment that he called me this afternoon, did not receive an invitation. I forwarded mine, but then realized that he may not be able to use it as it's dedicated to the user. So he said he did not receive it. He's probably frantically trying to get on right now.
Okay. Well, that's all right. We'll continue with the agenda. And then if he joins anytime during the meeting, we can just pop over to his property and talk about his item.
I
Fair
just
enough.
sent the email to Ian, so he should be sending it out.
Great. Thanks, Trish. And thanks, Russell. So
Thank you.
let's go to 926 Coopertown Road.
Applicants present?
Yes. Hello, my name's Chris Young.
Hey, Chris.
How you doing?
Yeah, Chris, I think you've been here before.
I have. Yes.
January.
Okay, well, welcome back. I think you know the ropes. Will let Ian pull up your drawing for 926 Coopertown Road.
Okay. If it's all right, if I could share my screen.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Thank you. So can you see my screen now?
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is the existing conditions plan for 926. We were here for the same applicant for 930 Coopertown, which is in the top of the screen here. Basically, there's 3 lots here that were purchased, all vacant lots. And so we were here for 930. Now we're coming back for 926, which is this center lot. You can see there used to be a loop driveway, and so we're now going to remove this portion of the driveway. And then a new home is proposed to be built here in the back with the driveway coming up the center. And actually, I'm sorry.
Off of Coopertown, right, Chris?
Yes, off of Coopertown. Yeah, it's a common driveway in the front. Let me get this set of plan doesn't have the color on it. It's a common driveway in the front, and then it branches off to a new house at 930. It's going to go straight back to 926, and then eventually
Third lot.
part of the existing drive goes over to 912.
Got it. And I don't believe there's any trees within the vicinity other than that small tree from what I remember from the last time I was there.
Yes, so we do have a handful of trees to be removed, but they're almost all hazardous. And so this is sheet 4, the erosion sediment control plan. We do show some tree protection fencing here along the edge of where the improvements are proposed and the grading. But you'll see there are, if I zoom in here, this label we have is for dead, diseased, or hazardous trees. And so there are a handful on there's 2 large trees that are remaining, but there's some on the outskirts here that are in bad shape, some along the front. And so at the time of submission, which was in February, we had just kind of a verbal from the arborist who went out to the site on which trees were in bad shape. And then we just got the report yesterday, which I have here. I know no one has had a chance to review it yet, but I will email it to John and Trish that more specifically shows the trees. And so as a result of that, I did update the plans and the list. And so we have, all of these are hazardous trees to be removed. There are 2 other trees that were not hazardous, but we're still proposing their removal. They're basically in this group here where there's a 21-inch maple in the front, then a 9-inch maple, a 26-inch oak, and a 13-inch oak. And so we're removing these 2 smaller ones to allow the larger ones that are healthy to grow. And so we do have the replacement chart here, and with those 2 to be removed, I don't think we need to, but we showed 2 replacement trees. And we show those right in the front here on the driveway. I'm sorry for this color. That was my fault in the plotting. We do show 2 new trees, white oak trees on this side of the driveway. If you remember from 930, where we did have a handful of replacement trees, we kind of lined them along this side. And so the applicant is going to put those 2 here, likely add a few more coming down the driveway here to match both sides. I didn't show that at this point, so we weren't locked into that, but that's what he intends to do.
So is Mike Gillen, Chris, on the line with us?
I don't believe that he is.
Can I make a suggestion? And this is in no way concerning the arborist that made the determination of the hazardous trees. But with this quantity of hazardous trees, my recommendation to the Shade Tree Commission is to allow our arborist to verify the veracity of that report, because you can see there's a large quantity of trees that are being removed deemed hazardous. And if that's the case, that's fine. There are no compensatory trees required. But my recommendation is we have give our arborist the opportunity to review the report and go in the field and determine that. And if he agrees, then the applicant doesn't come back and the plan is fine. If our arborist determines that they're not all hazardous and additional compensatory trees are required, then they could come back with a revised plan.
Yep. That's why I asked if Mike was on the phone. I mean, on the Zoom call, I want him to run me through, even if it was a Cliff Notes version. It just seems like a lot of hazardous trees congregated to one lot.
Hey, John, I am here if you can hear me.
Okay. Hey, Mike, why don't you run us through what's going on here a little bit?
Hey,
Okay,
guys,
so-
but before we go there, I gotta admit, I do agree with Steve. I was
No,
going to the same
absolutely.
place. I was going to the same place. I would follow the process and file a hazardous tree report, especially because you have lots of heritage trees listed on there. And that's what I think we would be sensitive to.
Sure.
And we're okay with
Regardless,
that.
I don't think the Cliff Notes will buy us anything.
No, I just wanted to sit and get a little bit of insight since the arborist report was just delivered tonight.
Yeah, so John, I would say this, that you've been out there before and that property's been neglected. So I know that there's a lot of trees, but I totally agree. Have someone go out there and confirm it. But those trees have been neglected. They're covered in vines. They're rotted out. They're uprooted. I mean, they're just in horrible condition out there.
Well, you know what, folks, it's so bad. The condition of these trees is so bad that the trees are trying to save, the 2 big trees behind the shade tree fencing. One of them is covered with ivy. I mean, it's totally covered with ivy. It's good. So that tree they're trying to save, which I'm not sure they can save it.
So Mike, this is the area where we met at the parking lot that one day in the circular driveway.
Correct.
Correct. Okay, got it. Now it's coming back to me.
So-
I'll run out there tomorrow to confirm these.
Yeah, let's save that conversation for we have a pretty big agenda, so we already know the arborist has got to go out. So my recommendation is, as Eileen said, we're not going to gain any traction here going over this without the site visit by the arborist.
Sure.
And I think we're good with that recommendation, Steve. Like you said, if everything's good, then we can be approved. If not, we would have to gain the approval for the other trees. I think last time for 930, we had time to have John go out there and verify Mike Gillen's report. This time we didn't have that time.
So Chris, can you file the hazardous tree report for the trees listed? John will look at them as well, but can you follow the process? That will help us track them.
Okay.
And I'll get out there tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, because I sense, is there a concern about the schedule, or are we holding you up? Chris, that's a question to you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We don't have the review from the township engineer yet, so I think we have, probably another 2 weeks or so before we're done.
Okay.
We prefer not to wait another month, but we do have some time.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Okay, so all in favor of having Chris follow the process of submitting a hazardous tree report for those trees that are identified there, and then following the process, John would take a look at them, confirm, yep, they're correct. And then that really would be the end. The 2-for-2 replacement is not required, but appreciated certainly. So all in favor of approving under those conditions? Aye.
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 Great. Okay, super. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Okay, great.
And one note, just make sure you take some pictures of those trees too and file with the hazardous tree report.
Yep.
Excuse me, Joe Kravitz is now logged in. I was having a hard time getting through.
Okay, no
For
problem,
DT.
Joe.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll go to mute for now. Thank you.
Okay.
James, did you just come on?
I just came on, yes.
Okay,
5
thank
minutes
you.
ago.
Okay,
James.
thank you.
Okay, super. So Joe, we're actually going to hop over to your property now. So Ian, if you can bring up Deep Dean Road. And then Joe, if you just want to walk us through basically the scope of your project, most importantly, the trees that you're moving, the types, the sizes, the trees that you're putting in, replacing them with, and then your tree protection fencing and just your egress pattern.
Okay, can you hear me, number one?
Yes.
Okay, very good. I'm also represented by a former Radnor arborist, Township arborist, Russell Carlson. He's in the meeting as well.
Yep.
Half-acre building lot, basically. And we've got in that drawing the need to replace some trees, legacy trees over basically on the left-hand side of the property. Russell's documented those in particular and created a report for them. And I'm also looking as well, because on the right-hand side of the property, I've got Route 320 sitting there. Obviously, although it's not required with replacement, I would like to be taking that whole side and creating arborvitaes completely down the run there, as well as on the back border of the property to really bring a lot of vegetation into play. I'd like Russell, though, to answer all your technical concerns, and I'd like to pass it on to him at this point.
Okay, I've got the mute off. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay, what is it? Do you have some specific questions?
Yeah. So
Do you have a tree table on the plan outlining what you wish to remove and the compensatory trees and all that good stuff?
Okay, that was all presented in my report with a table of what the replacement trees were going to be. Basically, we have 5 trees along the north property line, which is in the left side of this site plan. There's 5 trees along there that are on the Kravitz property that need to be removed. And then there's a 5th one towards the back, towards the bottom here, which is shown as number 5, Japanese maple, to be preserved. But numbers 1 through 4 are in poor condition. And the problem here is that the overlay of the proposed new structure is going to be about 12 feet from the property line, which puts it very, very close to all of those. 2 of the trees are just small. We have a dogwood that's in front that's in very poor condition. Top is broken out, poor crown shape. We see a Norway maple there that is actually, I believe, on the neighboring property. That's let me see, 6 through 10 are on the neighbor's property. Large tulip tree number 3 and a tulip tree number 4. Both very large trees. One of them, I forget what the heritage tree cutoff is, but one of them at least is the
30 inches.
I'm sorry?
30 inches.
30 inches. Okay, that's what I thought it was. Tree number 3 is in relatively good condition at this point, but it's going to be about 12 feet from the foundation. And then given workspace and such, it's going to be even closer. If the building is constructed, that tree will be hazardous, likely to uproot and fall towards the neighbor's property. not likely to survive under those conditions. So while the tree is in relatively good shape right now, it will not be if any construction is done on the property. Tulip tree number 4, same basic condition. It's going to be very close to the building footprint. And that's going to increase the hazard rating quite a bit. That tree, however, is a double trunk tree. It was originally 3 main trunks. The crotch between the 2 main trunks is down at about 5 or 6 feet off the ground. It has included bark. It's a very weak crotch. It's cracked. It probably has decay inside. And the 3rd trunk that was growing up there had died. It recently toppled sometime within the past year. One of the photographs provided in the hazard tree shows the log laying on the ground, but now there's extensive decay down into the base of that tree. So without further testing of the tree, drilling into it or anything, I presume on good basis that the tree is rotted inside at the base, pretty hazardous already. The construction, tearing up the root system within about 10 feet or less, probably down to about 8 feet by the time you get close enough with the construction area. That tree will also be hazardous. So we have those 2 that are hazardous trees to be removed. The others listed for removal are much smaller trees, and the replacement requirements were listed in my report.
Are they on this drawing somewhere? A table that shows it to us?
I did not show that. That was left to Joe and his engineers as to show the placement of the trees.
There it is.
Oh, super. Yeah, if you can, we'll just wait till Ian makes that a little bigger.
One more time, Ian? Thank you.
Hey, John, are American arborvitae, can they take snow load?
I would prefer green giant over the regular, emerald green. But another concern is obviously the deer browse as well.
I mean, you can treat for that though. You can spray green giants for that.
Well, you can and you can. I mean, that's a cumbersome activity, from, October 1st until, the end of April.
Yeah, but on 320, you're not going to get deer there. It's too much traffic.
There's deer there, Matt. We're on 322 and we get a lot of deer.
9, 11.
I just don't like sometimes the way some of these arborvitaes, they just clump over.
Yeah, I would agree with
I would
you.
prefer a green giant if we could.
I would certainly be happy to comply to a green giant, obviously.
Right. Yeah, so looking this over, what you have there looks like it fits. So we need 6 large canopy trees, and you have them between your red maples, and then 2 others that can be smaller, large, and you have them with your service berries. So, and then you have 2 others if we count the arborvitae out of the 38 that you're planting. So from a tree compensatory requirement, this looks okay. Any comments from anyone else?
How many trees are being removed?
5.
5, okay.
Mhm. 5 with 1 being a heritage tree, 35 inches, 2 being the split trunk, 22, 26 inches, and then 2 smaller trees, a 10-inch and an 8-inch.
Yeah, so for compensatory, he's going with the ordinance.
Correct. Yep. Yep. And even the distribution of, let's say, large and
Yeah, that's funny.
yeah. Looks okay. Do you want to show us the location of these trees? What's on here?
So you can see off the border of Route 320, that whole side of Giants that would be located there. And then obviously the issue at hand to the left side, which Russell just went through. Can't really, trying to get a bigger blow up of that. My eyesight at age 60 is starting to move.
And does this show the new trees?
Mhm. The new trees are coated with cap letters.
The arborvitae are lined up on the berm on the
That I
right.
see. Oh, and OG, SB, those are the new trees?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, service berry, I got it. 3 service berries, okay. Oh, and October glory, okay. And red sunset, okay. Okay, and the tree protection fencing looks like it's shown. Okay, any questions from anyone?
Looks good.
Looks good to me.
Okay, great. All in favor of approving? Aye.
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 Great. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Russell.
Thank you for your courtesies.
Good seeing you, Russ.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Okay, you too. Okay, so we're down to the last one, Radnor High School. Is anyone here for the high school?
Yes, Matt,
Yep.
Elaine, we do have a group from the high school. Great project, accessibility project. They've been through land development and they're now here for you folks for their grading permit review.
Super.
Hello, everybody. I'm Hugh Cadzo, the landscape architect on the project. Bill Dolan, who's standing by the track. I'm actually in Glencoe in Scotland right now.
Wow.
I'm
I'm jealous.
I can't help it.
Yeah.
And the
You have your
architect.
clubs? Did you bring your clubs?
Shouldn't you be in
Yeah.
Ireland?
And Steve Barron's was on here. I don't see him now. We were before you back at December 16th and presented the project. What we have here is pretty much identical. The only change we had, I'm going to share this screen, and was we had to relocate some trees based off of a last second. To make a long story short, originally we had the long jump, which is this feature here, up into the D area. And there's an edict coming down from the governing bodies of track and field for safety regulations that you need to have an additional 10-foot area around this pad where the jump pole vault pad goes, which prevented us leaving that within this area. So the plan that you saw in December had the trees like this here. And what we did is we relocated them outside away from the long jump pad and runway there. So it's the same number of trees. It's the same trees. There's no other difference. Everything we've done the same number of trees as before, the same trees being removed. This was really the only change, which was simply a relocation.
Mhm.
And here down here, if you take a look, the reason why the trees are like this, there's an existing scoreboard there, so we couldn't mass it over here. It would block the scoreboard from the new grandstand over there. So
Mhm. So so same number of trees, you're just putting them in a different location.
yeah, these were relocated to accommodate the long jump.
Mhm. Anybody have any questions?
And I do have, actually, if I could indulge in one other thing here, I asked, since last time we presented before you, we had our rendering was, did not include the actual trees, the new trees that are being planted. So I asked the architect to give me some shots of the 3D rendering, which shows you the trees that over there by Roland Field.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
To give you an idea
This is
what it's going to look like. So, we've planted these trees up in that area. This is the ramp going down to Anki. This is the meadow grass and stuff we're planning to have planted down there.
Very nice.
Yeah, it looks great.
So yeah, I just wanted to kind of, after what we did, we were able to produce this. So I thought I'd share that with you tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it looks super. But so any questions from anyone?
No, looks straightforward.
Yeah, this looks like an easy one. So motion to approve? Aye. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thank you.
Great job,
Thank you
you.
all. Thanks. See you.
So folks, now we're down into number 5. Tree removal without approval or clearing permits. So 471 Barclay Road. I don't know if there's anyone here from that resident, or Steve, if you have comments about trees being removed without approval.
Says none at this time.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so sorry, that's under clearing permits.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you. Thanks, James. So anyone here from 471 Barclay?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, welcome.
Sorry, I'm Paul Hughes, Kimley Horn, the applicant's engineer, and the applicant TJ Davis was on the call as well.
Okay, super. Ian, can you pull up this drawing? Yeah. And then if you can just walk us through the scope of the project, the trees you're taking out, the trees you're putting in, and then the tree protection fencing.
Sure. So the scope of the project is the demolition of an existing single-family dwelling for the construction of a new single-family dwelling. We've been to the zoning hearing board to receive necessary relief to dimensional relief. The plan that you see before you shows the removal of 3 trees. We met with the township arborist to review the condition of each tree on site, and this is the plan that was generated in the wake of that meeting. So the 3 trees that we have on there, the largest of the 3, kind of to the upper part of the page, is a silver maple. The second tree, the smallest one, kind of in the center of the 3, is a Japanese maple. And then the third to the bottom of the footprint of the proposed house is a cedar.
Yep, declining cedar. Yep.
Can you tell us the sizes?
Sure. The silver maple it's labeled as an 80-inch, and we have a picture of it in a presentation that we sent to Ian. But it's kind of a split trunk.
Yep.
It has 4 trunks actually.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. There you go. Yep. Yeah. Actually, I can share my screen, Ian, if that's okay. If everyone wants to see the picture.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, the tree had notable decay on the west side of the tree. It's actually not a true 80-inch, but
yeah. Can everyone see my screen?
Not
Oh, sorry. Hang on a second. I'll get there. Okay. How about now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a view. Actually, let me go to full screen here. From Barclay, looking up the driveway, the existing driveway, and obviously the arrow pointing at that 80-inch multi-trunk tree.
What is that in front of the sycamore?
mailbox.
That's the mailbox.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Hey, John, I noticed it looked like the crown had some problems too.
Correct, especially if you're facing the tree from this photograph we're reviewing, the left-hand side had a lot of dieback, just because the amount of decay in there, which could also be root related. Obviously there was no excavation around the tree, so we couldn't check for root decay, but definitely some tribulations and defects going on with the large left-hand leader that splits off from it's just below 4.5, Matt. So the tree is actually around 58, 60 inches in diameter.
Right.
Okay. And then, Paul, what about, you had a Japanese maple and a cedar? Can you tell us the sizes of those?
Yep. Here's the slide for that. Japanese maple, 15-inch, and the cedar, 24. And we have the condition notes from our field visit listed on this slide as well.
Yeah. So, and then your replacements are 6? Ah, I
Yep.
see, sorry.
Yep, and so this is the statistics for the replacement trees, and if I flip back, we highlighted the replacement trees on the plan in green, so they stand out a little bit from the existing trees on the survey, of course. But then you kind of see them generally situated along the South Layton side.
So Eileen, even though these trees were hazardous, I asked the applicant to still put forth replacements on behalf of the township, which they agreed to do.
Right, but if I mean, unless they have a hazardous tree report, they really aren't, can we deem them hazardous? Like this is getting to be a slippery slope where everybody comes in, the tree is decaying on this side here, and then everything is hazardous. So, I mean, if we were to say you are removing these trees, it would be 10 trees to be replaced, just going by the compensatory requirements. 6 would have to be large canopy. So it looks like you're a little bit underneath that.
Well, they'd only have to replace 6, that Eileen, right?
Well, we don't
Because
have.
they're allowed to take down 5 trees. They're only replacing 1 because 1 is a heritage tree. So unless they have a hazardous report.
Yeah, but so there's 2 things that trigger you to come to the shade tree committee. It's either the removal of more than 5 or the removal of a heritage.
Right.
But once you do that, they all get lumped together. So you've got 1 heritage coming out and 2 other trees coming out. And so if we follow the replacement formula, it would be 10 trees for a large canopy. If you wanted to declare 1 hazardous, and we need a report saying this tree has been looked at by an arborist, it is indeed hazardous, and then it would be exempt.
Well, I don't think we've done that at every meeting. I don't think that's part of the ordinance. I would ask Steve to clarify that, or John.
I mean, I was out on the site. I mean, I verified, they asked me to come out as an unbiased because they were new to working along that roadway. So I verified.
I see Eileen's point though, from a procedural standpoint. So if somebody, and we went through this with the previous applicant with MG Trees, if they're going to declare a tree hazardous, now granted, they're talking to our arborist and he's concurring, but there should be a paper trail that says a hazardous tree report was submitted and verified by the arborist. The plans match the tree report. And that way, because 6 months from now, when they're removing these trees and we're the ones who take the call, and somebody's going to say, hey, they're cutting down a heritage tree over there, or they're cutting down this tree, Trish can pull up the property and she'll see, oh, there's a hazardous tree report and these trees were to be removed. So
you can get that over us tomorrow, right?
I know we go back and forth on this, but I think the requirement should be, if you come in with a plan with hazardous trees, it needs to have the report.
I agree. I agree completely, Steve. That the point I was making was they have 1 heritage tree, which is above 30 inches. They need to compensatory of 6 trees, 4 or 3, 2, and whatever, 4 and 2. Even if they're replacing a heritage tree, I don't believe by the ordinance that they have to replace for the other 2 trees. I have no problem if whoever wants to replace them. I'm just trying to make sure the ordinance is, we're trying to educate people.
I don't think so.
About
if I could, my
ordinance.
name's Alpha. Hi, I just wanted to just chime in here. My name's Alpha Scaldo. I'm an attorney. I represent the applicant. I represented them before the zoning board, and I was letting Paul handle this hearing this evening. But since we're getting into the ordinance and the requirements, and our client TJ Davis is on the line as well, participating. But I do agree. Having reviewed the tree ordinance in detail, there are 2 avenues to get in front of this commission. One is taking down a heritage tree or taking down more than 6. I didn't see where, if you're in for a heritage tree and you're taking down others, then you would have to, supplement the tree replacement. I'm sure, I'll let TJ speak to it, but I can't imagine that's a real big deal. But more importantly, the hazardous tree report I didn't see that in the code. I read through it, and that's why we asked Mr. Hosbach to come out and review the property with us, figuring that if we had the concurrence of the township arborist, that, this tree was indeed, decaying and in bad health, that would be enough to support the request to remove it.
Nobody's disputing what you're saying about the additional trees, right? The discussion is on the hazardous tree and that procedure. And unfortunately or unfortunately, this is coming up with your client. So we're working through that, Mr. Fiscaldo. But I agree, the ordinance doesn't state that the trees get lumped together when it's one heritage tree. But you do need to remember, the ordinance also states that if the planning commission, if the shade tree commission so wishes, they can require DBH for a heritage tree, which would mean
Understood.
literally 30 inches for 30 inches. So we're just trying to work through the hazardous part, not trying to hold your client up.
No, understood. I just wanted to state my piece.
So if he's replacing the 6 trees, does he still need to do the hazardous report since he is replacing them?
So let's start at square one. Which tree is being deemed hazardous between the 3 that are being taken down?
The silver maple.
The heritage tree.
Right.
So if the heritage tree, let's just follow that. Let's say indeed that is hazardous. Then you wouldn't even need to come to us other than to file the hazardous tree report, which you still wouldn't need to come to us. It would simply be filed. And then you could take down the other 2 trees because you wouldn't trigger the tree ordinance because you're only removing 2 trees and one would be following the hazardous line.
Eileen, they're not really calling out, they're not using the word hazardous in their chart.
Yeah, I know. That's what's confusing. It's
Right. I'm sorry. I don't know where, I don't see in the ordinance where we cross over into the hazardous category. The requirement was if we're requesting to take down a heritage tree, we have to come in front of the commission, and my client has his property under agreement and we need to cross all our T's and dot our I's before we close. And so we spoke to Mr. Norsini and Mr. Hosbach, and we agreed with this coming forward with this this plan this way. The heritage tree would be right in front of the proposed new house. It's in bad health, it's decaying, and certainly poses a danger. Whether it's we need to file a hazardous tree report, I don't know if that's as relevant as we came before the board or commission to request the ability to remove this tree and replace it in kind with additional trees pursuant to the code.
but we don't have a hazardous tree report saying that the silver maple is hazardous. So it would be-
I think what he's saying, Eileen, is even if I'm calling this tree a hazardous, even if it wasn't, if it was alive, healthy, and prosperous, they're removing it anyways because of the construction.
Yep, okay, that's fine. That's no problem there. And if that's the case, then it would be 10 trees are required.
And TJ, are you on the line?
I'm here.
Getting stuff.
TJ, are you okay with adding 4 additional trees?
I have no problem with putting 4 more trees along Ithan. That would be, I'm fine with that.
So I think that takes care of everything. Hazardous or not hazardous, the applicant is providing replacement trees for everything.
Yeah, and then we would need 6 to be large canopy under that. And do you have a table that shows what you're replacing here? What these green trees are right here that you're putting in?
Yeah, it's a bottom left. Plants.
Could you blow that up? Could you blow that up?
Even the slide is okay.
Yeah, this is the list here. It's on the plan as well.
Okay, so that would mean you would need to increase the number of large canopy.
Yep.
Okay, so, I mean, we could look at approving this with the thought that you increase the number of trees to 10 and that a minimum of 6 of them are large canopy.
Do we which want to agree on which exactly what kinds of trees and where they're going to go right now? We're happy to just put it all to bed.
Sure, if you like to, we can. Yep.
I don't know which. I mean, I'm just a real estate attorney. I don't know which ones of these are large canopy or not. So if you can, help us supplement the list.
Yeah, the swamp white oak is large canopy. I'm not sure how we would look at the Norway spruce or the Canadian white fir. Matt?
I'll defer to the arborist, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, those are not small trees.
Yeah, okay.
I think in my book, they qualify. John, how do you feel about that?
They're gonna get very large. I mean, I guess I'm still stuck on the 6 trees, Eileen. I just want to confirm with the applicant.
Okay.
The trees are not bundled together. They have one large tree that's being removed, which prompted them to come in front of us tonight. That will require only 6 trees as per ordinance. I guess I'm confused on where the 10 is because they're allowed to remove up to 5 trees. It's not a bundle package.
The way we have treated these before, and I'm looking at the ordinance now, so I'll see if I can read it quickly enough to clarify, but the way we've treated this before is you trigger the ordinance if either you remove a heritage tree or more than 5 trees. Either one, you trigger the ordinance. You then come before the shade tree committee and the trees are bundled.
Steve, can you verify that, Steve?
I think what the chair is saying, I believe we've treated it that way, and the applicants have been more than happy to oblige. But I do not think they are bundled. I think if you come for one, so any resident can remove 0 or 1 to 5 trees without appearing before this board.
Correct. Unless it's
Remove a heritage tree, you have to come before this board. There's no way out. And if the heritage tree is not deemed hazardous, you're going to do the compensatory plantings as required by this board.
Right.
But I don't believe the other trees get bundled in because they have that ability. And I'm not saying we haven't done that in the past, because we have, but
yeah, I think
I don't think it's required.
I think they, yeah, that is how we've done it before. And to me, it seems to make sense. You come, there's a property, you're removing X number of trees. We then look at the number of trees that you're removing and we calculate it out. So somebody could come and say they're removing 6 trees. One is a heritage, there's 5 other ones.
But Eileen, there's another way to look at this. So if these 3 trees none of them are heritage, they don't come before us.
Correct, that I agree with.
Listen, the thing that triggers this, the trigger is the heritage tree. It's not the other 2 trees. It doesn't make any logical sense to me to bundle this. I don't understand that. It just doesn't.
When I met with the applicant, Matt, we looked at this one tree. They said they needed to remove it. They didn't have any notion of the exact hazardous condition or the state it was in. I pinpointed that out. I said, listen, this tree is a hazardous tree. However, we would like you to replace this tree with 6 new trees on behalf of the township, which Paul and TJ said, absolutely. We want to do our part for the township. So that's where that came into play. And that's why they put 6 trees in, because they knew, based on their attorney Al's recommendation, they didn't have to replace the other 2 trees because it was under the 5 tree status. So I'm just trying to be fair here.
That's how I see it.
Agreed. So in reality, by placing, if John Hosback deems the hazardous tree, the heritage tree a hazardous tree, they're going over and above by planting these 6 trees, and there's no requirement to plant for the other 2. So in essence, they're exceeding any requirements that we have.
But if you guys want to throw in 4 crepe myrtles, that'd be great.
Look at Matt, still pushing. Good job, Matt.
So I think one thing is, when we update the ordinance, we can take this into account because we have not practiced this before, but I understand your logic of what you're putting forth. So when we update the ordinance this year, we could make it more clear, just one way or the other, which way it is.
Absolutely.
For this property here, I would ask that we follow the process. So if you want to deem the large heritage tree a hazard, they file a hazard report and do so.
Yeah, but you know what?
Then they don't have to plant any trees.
They're
Yeah,
not
Right.
deeming it hazard,
Right.
so they're
That's
they're
right.
coming to us, they're taking down a heritage tree. They have to replace it with 6 trees. The other trees don't come into play. I've read the ordinance a bunch of times. Mr. Fuscaldo read it and it doesn't, we've done it before because people have a great, come before us and say, we're gonna plant, just like he's coming before us with a hazardous tree saying we're gonna plant 6 trees. It's
Yeah, I guess what's being, I think what's being lost in the communication here, and I don't want to hold this up any longer, is we looked at this tree. They were planning on taking this tree down no matter what. I said, this tree is a hazardous tree. I said, however, because of its sheer size, I would like to see 6 new trees planted on behalf of the township. TJ absolutely said, I'll plant 6 new trees, whatever you want. Okay, he wasn't even planning on doing that. He put those trees in. So really what he's saying by this plan is he's not even concerning himself with the hazard property. He's concerning himself with, I'm removing this heritage tree and here's my 6 new trees. If he wanted to push the envelope, he could say, hey, it's a hazardous tree. Here's all the defects. Here's the tribulations and problems, and I'm not replacing. So, I mean, I'm just trying to make sure that we keep these 6 trees that I asked for in play here.
So I agree. They're exceeding our ordinance. They're planting 6 trees, which they don't really have to. So by the book, he's planting 6 additional trees for a tree that's deemed hazardous. The other 2 don't count. They're doing more than they need to, which is greatly appreciated, by the way.
Our pleasure.
Also, if you are going to apply for a hazardous tree, that puts them back, right? They're trying to get through this process.
Right.
By coming to us in getting and saying, we're taking down this tree, heritage, could be hazardous, could not be. They're still replacing. So,
So that's exactly the case. I think at some point tonight, we just crossed over into the hazardous category, and we weren't really going down that road at all. We're taking down this tree. It just happens to be hazardous, but that's not the reason why we're taking it down. And I think we're meeting the ordinance requirements by replacing it as we propose. So I think that the hazardous issue just sort of confuses this particular case.
I would agree.
I agree with that.
So would put forth a motion to approve the removal of 3 trees, 1 heritage, 2 non-heritage, all healthy. And therefore you are planting 6 trees in what is our new interpretation of the ordinance that we can exclude trees that are smaller than heritage and are 5 or less from the calculation. So new precedents. All in favor to approve?
Aye.
Great.
Aye.
Super. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Sure.
With the one contingency of updating the ordinance.
Yep.
With that clarification.
Yeah, so actually let's talk about that because we didn't cover goals last night, even though we meant to, because we had a very healthy discussion on mission and vision. So who would like to take the leadership of updating the ordinance? The good news is, guys, I will tell you, it is Tradiferin who has reached out to, I think it was Matt and myself. They are trying to put together their own shade tree committee. And so they are doing tons of benchmarking with other shade tree committees. It may be in the order of almost 20, but they gave us a healthy spreadsheet with all the benchmarking that they've done. So I got to admit, there's some really good homework done if somebody wants to volunteer to revise the ordinance.
I would love to, but I unfortunately just do not have the time.
Bear with. Yeah, I know. I hear you, Seth. I would be willing to take a stab at it with the idea that maybe we do it, I don't want to say 1 paragraph at a time, but basically don't worry about wordsmithing it, but just kind of get our content correct. Like, how do we really want to operate? And then look to turn that into verbiage. And maybe that's something even where I don't know, Steve, I work with John Rice and we turn it into the appropriate verbiage, but we just get aligned on, hey, how do we want the content to look?
So Eileen, that would be fine. So basically, once it's all together, we could submit a red line version to John Rice, and he could put it into the Y4s and whereases, and then it would come back to the committee, to the Shade Tree Commission.
Absolutely.
I know we have a mental list of things that we've been wanting to update, but do we have you been keeping a list, Eileen, of?
I have a master list going so far.
Oh, perfect.
Yep. And that includes correcting what happened tonight for sure. You know, I would like to see it bundled if anybody's coming in front of us, but yeah.
You guys, wait a minute. Hang on. We have been following the bundling theory for like years.
I don't think, I think before we have not. I think that's why, because they had an attorney on the line, I wanted to make sure that we were following the ordinance. That's all I was asking.
I'll review some tapes too and see which way we've been going.
Oh, Eileen,
we've been bundling, I'll tell you that. There's no doubt. Whether that's
and I pointed it out before and we still did it, but the applicants always say, okay, we'll still plant them.
Yep.
But if you go by the ordinance, I think it's pretty clear that
I agree.
There's nowhere that it's bundled. I'm just being honest with the applicants, that's all.
And Eileen, remember what I was worried about, because when I saw that tree and how bad it was, and they said, we're gonna have a tree guy come over, I explained it was a hazardous, but I said I wanted those trees planted, and they didn't give me any grief. That's all I wanted was those trees.
Yeah, but I must tell you guys, like, the number of times we don't follow the process is getting to be staggering. It is nonstop that somebody comes in here almost every single presentation. This tree is in decline. This tree is hazardous. Do you have a report? No. So, I mean, we're constantly hearing editorial or subjective comments. And I think at the end, we get to a good place. You know, we come up with something that's reasonable.
And I think a new drafted ordinance with the checklist to the ordinance that I will draft, because I have a great list of checklists that I want that has to show decay, the picture, the type of picture, all that good stuff will be part of that process.
John, that is our hazardous tree report.
No, I want to have a little bit more in depth.
But what's happening is they're not filing the hazardous tree report as part of what they're doing.
Yeah.
So it's the tree's hazardous. We met with the arborist, but whatever way the ordinance turns out, from where it sits now, we need the paper trail.
Correct.
Because so aside from what everybody here has to put on, staff has some requests too, from a tracking standpoint and a procedural standpoint, whether it's streamlines or does whatever. But I don't want to take up too much time because we have some big projects to go over with the Shade Tree Commission.
Just real quick, Eileen, you commissioned me last night to talk to John Rice, which I did in regards to the donations.
Yeah.
And he said, absolutely, we can do that. And he stated, and I couldn't hear him very clearly because he was walking into a meeting, that the Radnor Township, and he said to draft a memo to Bill White, because Bill White approved something pursuant to donations or gifts with the township, but he didn't go into long detail about it. But he asked if you would, and the Shade Commission would draft a note to Bill White requesting what our objective is and send it over to Bill White. But he said, absolutely, 100%, it is legal, and we are the same status as a 501c, but just not labeled as a 501c, because we are a public entity.
Okay. Meaning somebody could not deduct it as a nonprofit, like a charitable?
No, they can deduct it, he said.
Okay, that's great. Okay, super, I can send a note to Bill.
Great.
Okay.
Just wanted to follow up with that.
Yep, no,
Thank
that's
you,
super. Okay, so I'll take the lead on redoing the ordinance. John, I'll work with you because it sounds like you already have a list, and maybe that's the first thing we do next month, guys. We just kind of present, hey, these are the things that we have on the target to revise the ordinance for. We'll look to get alignment here.
Maybe
And then-
Eileen, maybe me and you can spend, since it won't be infringing on the sunshine, maybe me and you can spend an hour one day after work, one evening, and spend an hour and shoot a lot of bullet points, put them in, and then present them at the next meeting. Excellent.
Okay, great. Okay, now to the big township projects. So we'll go to new business, and then Steve, we also had some from last night that we didn't have time to cover,
Sure.
but we'll cover these first. So Glenn McCrone.
That's going to fall under Mr. Hosback.
Okay.
I've got the next two, but Clem McCrone is with John.
Yep. Clem McCrone is along the back, I'm trying to think, what is that cross street there, Steve, back there?
Rockingham?
Yes,
Or-
Rockingham. I believe it's Rockingham. So the trees that back up to the houses on Rockingham, we found numerous trees that have defects. These trees were reviewed a few years back and were labeled as risk-related at that time. From our most recent inspection, we found numerous hazards. In fact, a bunch of limbs came down on some houses, which prompted another response to go out there and review these trees. So I have asked Ricky and Mike Simmons to put them on the list for removals.
And how many trees is it, John? Any idea?
It's a total of 6. And one is actually struck by lightning.
Okay. Are they heritage in size or?
I think the one that's hit by lightning, the white oak, was exactly 31 inches. All the other ones were not heritage status.
Okay, and so I assume the next step would be Public Works will take these down, and then we'll see this under hazardous trees. Let's say
Yeah,
next
I
month.
think that'll probably go into the bidding process, correct, Steve?
Yeah, so what the process has been, we're going back to what we used to do, which was unless the arborist deems it an immediate risk, it goes on a list. When we accumulate enough trees, it goes out to bid. Right now, that project's underway. Jimmy's Tree Service got that bid. They're in probably the last third of that. And that project includes tree removal, stump removal, and placement of topsoil. So that would be most likely, if they're not immediate risks and what the arborist is saying they're not, it would go on the list for another bid. For someone to do that. And the good thing is,
and what Mr. Dersini has asked of me every time we do review a tree is to put some sort of timeline. So immediate meeting right now, and usually we commission Horgan tree experts to take care of that. If not, it goes on the wait list for the annual, I guess it's an annual Steve's tree list.
and John, I think if it gets to be large enough, it would go out again. You know, it would go out again. And the good thing is now Seth will have some room in Garrett Hill to plant some trees along this fence line.
There we go. Yeah, Frank's project.
Yep.
I'm so happy I can't say anything.
Okay, no, but that's good. We can add that to the list of target areas, like along with our DCO park, you know, et cetera, that we talked about last night.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Okay, and guys, any questions for John before we move on to the other 2 items?
No, thanks for going through that, John.
Yeah. Okay, Steve, you want to tell us about West Wayne Preserve?
Sure, Ian, I have this up on my screen. Hopefully it'll come up if you share my screen.
Yeah, Steve, you can share your screen whenever you're ready.
So I'm assuming nobody can see this yet?
Right.
So you cannot see it, okay.
Right.
hang on a sec.
I also have the PDF if you want to use mine.
There we go, I got her.
I have my report as well that I can share.
Can you see that now?
It's sharing, yes.
Okay, so I'll try to be brief. I also want to make note that Dennis Capella, our engineering project manager, is on tonight. He's had his camera off and he's been silent, so I'm going to still call him out.
On the hot seat.
There you go. So this is a very sizable stormwater management project the township is in the design phase of, and I won't get too deep, but so down here is Friends of the Radnor Trail Park. And what we're planning down here is a sizable infiltration bed. We're going to have porous paving in the parking lot. And if any of you folks are familiar with West Wayne Avenue, you know it floods under the bridge right by the veterinarian. And we're going to add a series of inlet and piping to try to take that water back to our systems.
Yeah,
So that's,
and Steve, I'm sorry, can you just ground us? Where is this? Where's
sure,
West
this
Wayne?
is Friends of the Radnor Trail Park off of West Wayne Avenue. This piece here.
That's Radnor Trail right in the middle.
Correct.
This is the Radnor Trail. This
Okay.
is the Levin tract. This is South Devon Avenue. This is Conestoga Road.
Yep.
So as you're on Conestoga Road heading west, if you go up another 1/8 of a mile, you hit the car wash in Lancaster Avenue. But this is Friends of the Radnor Trail Park. West Wayne Avenue, the Wayne IAC is over here. You come under the bridge often floods. So we're doing something there to convey stormwater back. Right now, this parking lot is stone. We're proposing this to be porous paving, porous asphalt paving. And then back here is a sizable infiltration bed. That's just a little history. The part of the project that we need shade tree help with is this piece. So this is what's known as the Levin tract. Township has owned this for minimum 20 years. I've seen projects designed for here before for stormwater management. This was always obtained with the intent of using this for stormwater management. We've held resident meetings with the folks on South Devon and below in the Little Darby Creek watershed area. And that's what this project is to help them. So if you drive down Conestoga Road, over here is like the Wayne IAC, right? You're heading towards Lancaster Avenue. South Devon is here, and then you're going to see this is Lenore, this is Lantoga. So you see this big area. It's a wooded area. There's piles of dirt. There's always often standing water in there. So what we're going to do is a project in there to help remediate some of that stormwater. And I'd like you to follow this dashed line. This is the limit of disturbance of the project. This one, and then again, this one. And so here's the conundrum. We know that all these trees need to be removed. Everything within those lines needs to be removed. And we want to bring forth that to the Shade Tree Commission. We have a very detailed report by John Hosbach, literally every tree in the West Wayne Preserve. So many of these trees are hazardous, but also even ones that aren't need to be removed for us to grade this out properly and do our stormwater management. The big question we'd like to ask the Shade Tree Commission, aside from this, if you look at all these X's that are in and around the rest of the West Wayne Preserve, the arborist has deemed that these trees are in decline and should be removed. He's basically saying there's nothing good standing in that area, to paraphrase John.
Let me profound on that just real quick, Steve. From my inventory, which I can share, most of the trees that we're talking about within here are all ash trees that are probably 80 to 100% dead. So that was a dominant species throughout this whole preserve area. And if you recall, Eileen, you might recognize this property from 2016. This area, these two homes, I can't use my cursor on here, but if somebody, and if you could just put the cursor up here on the homes.
Here you go, John.
Yeah. So back in 2016, we were getting multiple calls from these two residents about failing trees, which prompted inspection. When we went out there, all the trees that were falling were all the trees that were dying, 2017, from the emerald ash borer.
And the vines in there are unbelievable.
Yep, correct.
So here's the first question to the Shade Tree Commission. So as part of this project, we're coming to you because we know we need to remove these trees to do our stormwater management project. Understanding what the arborist just said, we could, as part of this project, remove the rest of these trees and then replant the entire place. If so, option A is we only remove what is part and parcel of the stormwater management project, That's those trees that are enclosed by this dash line and this dash line. All the others would remain because we don't impact them with our grading. The other option is every tree with an X would get removed, and then we would replant. I mean, we're going to replant either way, but we have two questions on the replanting too. So I just kind of want to get your idea on.
So Steve, before you tell me about the replanting, just make note that there is Melanora has counterpart with a very strong landscape architect who's going to be restoring this area to a native effect with a lot of different layering trees, forbs, ground cover, all kinds of stuff that would resemble a woodland native structure.
Right. Understanding that it's wet all the time, and they would take all that into consideration. So I don't want to get lost on that now. I'd really like to just look at this and say, okay, Shade Tree Commission, we remove these trees, and the remainder are left, and they can be addressed either through another project or another time, or we just address them as we have been, which is on a case-by-case basis and as needed basis. The other option is virtually every tree in the West Wayne Preserve would be removed and would be part of the replanting schedule. So we'd like to get your opinion. We're still going to have to go to the Board of Commissioners, but we don't want to do that without input from the Shade Tree Commission. And as John said, so the two options were, Melior called this the Norsini plan, where we basically, I count up all the trees and we figure out the replacements, and we put a huge amount of 2.5-inch caliper and large canopy trees in there. Or the option that John mentioned was perhaps it won't be quite the replacement value tree for tree, but there will be a lot of ground plantings, shrubbery, low plantings, mid-level plantings, and so forth. So I know I threw a lot at you, but don't worry, the next project is much easier.
Okay, so maybe just some data gathering. How many trees are inside the dotted line area?
Okay, so we have John's report.
Here, let me see if I can share.
I got it right here, John.
Okay, great. So go to that table, Steve. There's the entire list.
Hang on, let me blow this up a little.
We're busy, John. It's a big list.
So I'm just going to scroll. I will get to the numbers, but if I scroll slowly,
you can see the ash dominant,
and you can see the health of these trees.
Steve, is this budgeted for at present?
So now we're seeking funding. The manager actually put together a funding plan for several. This is one of our really large stormwater projects. This is a multi-million-dollar project. It's like 2 million plus. So along with two other very large ones. So the managers put together a funding plan, and the board that was presented some time ago, and the board's mulling that over. But for us to get an accurate cost as well as move forward on the project, this is going to be a considerable expense either way. I need to be able to factor that into the project. So we're looking at John's list still, and it is extensive.
How many trees, John?
We're going to get to the count at the bottom, I believe.
Hey, Steve.
Yes,
page 18. Steve, I have a question that doesn't really have to do with the trees. You need to is there some urgency to the stormwater project? And I'm a near neighbor, so I live on West Wayne, but I know that at Gallagher and South Devon, when we have a big rain, the water pours out of this preserve, if you call it that, onto South Devon and down South Devon.
This project is to address that.
I mean,
so in a 10-year, 1-hour event, which our consultant Meliora has determined is the most impactful that we receive, you will see a river that comes out of here, runs down South Devon, and just goes over driveways. It could be 8 inches deep, if not deeper, and it's several feet. It takes up almost a lane. So one of the things this project's going to do is address that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that phenomena many times.
That's pretty substantial.
But so I guess my point is.
So here we go. There's our counts there. But go ahead, Matt.
I guess my point is and this doesn't have anything to do with the trees. My point is, if we don't do the stormwater plan, things are going to just get worse. I mean, that's what I'm thinking in terms of the near neighbors and people on South Devon, people on Gallagher, people on Morris. They're all low lying to this thing. This preserve, they're low lying.
The biggest impact, Matt, is the folks on South Devon and some further downstream. It does take a turn when you get down near the park sometimes. And there is a creek that kind of headwaters here. It's a babbling brook, and then as you go down, now just so you know, not to get too off track, the major contributor to the Little Darby Creek watershed, the major contributor of runoff is actually intradifferent, and that's the Acme Dan shopping center, as well as other areas up and down the pike. But this will be impactful to that area you just noted, Matt. Very much so.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I'm coming from. I think, people talk a lot about stormwater in Radnor, but I'm not sure the normal person understands how it all works. And with what happened at the gateway to the Blue Route, I think this is going to look really bad for a while, and I think people are going to think they're at it again. And I think there has to be a better public relations system here to let citizens know that we're doing this. We're taking all these trees out because we have to, because we can't do the stormwater if we leave the trees in there, and the trees are ash and they're dead. But I mean, it just seems to me that has to go out big time, like in bold letters.
And Matt, let me jump in here. So we've addressed that already. So we have a public information officer. So as you know, there's over 100 trees being removed near the high school for the tap trail, but we're planting 300. So we work very closely, Dennis and I, with our public information officer, and she's been pushing out information on all our social media platforms, press releases, web page, that is very much addressing exactly what Matt said. We're actually having signs made up. We're a little late on that, but like for a project like this, Matt, it would be that same procedure. We would be blanketing with information long before we start this. And at one point, our project signs would go up, which give folks driving by an idea that we're not just cutting down trees and walking away. It's part of a bigger, grander project. And oh, by the way, we're planting X, whatever, dozens or hundreds of trees.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because Dennis mentioned that at the meeting about the signs, and I just wanted to mention that. Yep.
But we're using our public information officer, Molly Gallagher. She's fantastic. And we're pushing information out like this. As a matter of fact, when the clearing started on the tap trail by the high school, we had already had our news release out. But I did get a couple calls, so I asked Molly to push that out again, which she did. And I truly think that's quelled some of people's fears about that, because usually I would probably get dozens of calls for that. I know John received some, but I think the fact that information is out there, it's a known project. We actually note in our press release, this was before the Board of Commissioners, this was before the Radnor Township School District, and most importantly, this was in front of the Shade Tree Commission. And this project would be no different.
Correct.
And we set up an email address as well that people can call, ask questions, and we respond quickly.
So
there's the guy behind all the scenes right there, Mr. Dennis.
Yep. That's Mr. Capella. So John, so I'd like you to go over these numbers, because the big decision here from the Shade Tree Commission is, do we just clear what we need for the project, or do we clear the site? So that's the biggest, and I think there's pros and cons to both.
Right. Before Hey, just one moment. So John, just real quick, the 148 trees to be replaced, is that within the dotted lines or the whole area?
So yeah, it's broken into two areas. So if you could see, this is the first set in the blue is within the LOD. There's 29 trees of good condition, 73 trees of fair, and 150 of poor condition. They're all within the dotted lines. Okay, the replace. Yeah.
We got it. We can read the table. Got it. So I want to open it up for questions so others have a chance to speak. We'll just go around. Frank, thoughts?
Steve, I had a question. When you do a stormwater project, do you hire a landscape architect for the replanting that you would do in that area?
In a project of this magnitude, yes, as a sub-consultant to Meliora, they brought on an RLA for planting. So it's in a project of this magnitude, absolutely.
So would it make, to me, it would make sense that, or the incremental cost of having that landscape architect look at the whole property, both within and outside of the LOD, might not be that expensive.
So the thought was, once we get some idea from the Shade Tree Commission in which way they'd like to go, then we, as opposed to being on a high level, we would come back to the Shade Tree Commission with the fully landscaped plan based on what our area of work is. So if it's solely within the LOD, then we'll bring back a plan from a landscape architect that is very detailed for what's going to be planted. If the idea was to clear the entire West Wayne Preserve, and I would like to talk about that if that's what people are leaning to, that's a completely different plan, and it's actually double the work. So we really need to give them direction. I'd rather not have them work up two huge plans, because if you look at the acreage back on that other one, there's and when we go down further on John Hosbach's table, you can see that it's a pretty sizable area and a good number of trees. So my request tonight, so we can give our sub-consultant focus, is what area are we going to work on, or two areas?
Well, I would lean to the whole Magilla. I don't know about anyone else.
Here's my question on, Steve, if you only did the designated LOD and you left the rest of the preserve the way it is, would your stormwater plan or approach be impacted negatively?
No.
So it would have, the stormwater mitigation will not be affected if we left the rest of the preserve intact, even in its decrepit natural state.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll tell you right off the bat, Matt, no. In 10 years, maybe if you had, I'm going to say we planted all these 2.5-inch caliper trees. So in 10 or 15 or 20 years, maybe when they're larger, healthier trees that absorb more water. So if you go deep into stormwater, there are things like tree credits, but the difference between an aging, declining ash tree and what that provides versus a young 2.5-inch caliper tree when it's planted, I don't have that information, but our calculations are based solely on the work in that limited disturbance.
Yeah, the only reason I bring it up is because Eileen and I walked the trail not long ago, and the area is, it's a very natural, swampy, has a lot of habitat in it. I understand completely why the stormwater project has to happen. I'm not in any way suggesting that we should even try to get in the way of that, and it would be irresponsible. But what I'm saying is, do we know how people in Radnor feel about having a totally natural, wet, swampy habitat? It might be important, to some people. It might be, we're gonna lose it if we do the whole thing. So I'm thinking in phases, maybe it's better. That's just
So
my thought.
Matt, if I can weigh in, so I'm looking at three aspects outside of the LOD, which is this section. Go back up a little bit, Steve. right, the outside the LOD. These trees, the 17, the 10, all those other trees that we're taking out within that
I'm
vicinity.
sorry, I'm on the within the LOD. I gotta find your outside the.
Right there, right there. You just went past it. You already went past it. Yep.
Oh, okay,
So,
sorry.
so the trees that are over 6 inches, Matt, to be clear, are all ash that are failing and we're all within striking distance of either the road interface, those homes, or the proposed improvements of the stormwater management. If we do, my fear is if we do not act on these, obviously, you know what happens when we have an area with deer browse and trees dying. The only thing that's going to regenerate itself is invasives. So what I'm worried about is if we don't manage these trees and get replanting done, when they fail and there's no more money in the kitty to manage this, it's just going to become an invasive fest around the entire swath of those 2 homes and around our, new designed landscape around the stormwater management system.
Hey, John, I have a question for you, and I'm only just going by what I looked at. So there's only 30 trees outside the LOD with X's on them?
30 trees of hazard trees over 6 inches.
Okay.
A lot of those other X's that are on that plan are all under 6 inches.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's very deceiving. Okay, and so can I play devil's advocate here to the arborist and kind of along Matt's thought?
Sure.
And I'm not saying.
And then
this is
after
right.
this, I really want to go around and give other people some
Oh, I'm
air.
sorry, please.
Yeah, why don't we, Eileen's right. Let's give some people some stuff and then Stevie can beat up on me.
Claire.
Thank you. All right, I have just a question and then a comment, and then I will get off. But my question is, we've seen this plan now, Steve, Mr. Norsini, through neighborhood things and through Parks and Rec and a couple different places. Is the plan for the stormwater an underground stormwater plan, or is it a retention pond? What is the plan basically?
So in the West Wayne Preserve, which is the Levin tract, which is what we're speaking of now, it's collection and retention, and then exiting through the pipe that goes under the trail.
Got it.
Once you get into Friends of the Radnor Trail Park, it's subsurface systems and porous paving.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so it's collection and then underneath that, where that big pipe is, and then out.
Correct.
Okay, which is partly done there by the Friends of Radnor Trail, correct?
I'm sorry, what was the last part?
So I know there's this big giant, the path that goes by the dog park. That's not the trail. There is some piping there. Is that part of it?
Yeah.
That's a swale, and some of that's going to be piped because remember I was talking about the big flooding that goes on under West Wayne Wayne under the bridge.
Right.
So right now that exits through a swale and a small pipe. So some of the swale that goes along the existing parking lot would be converted to pipe.
Got it. Okay, excellent. Now here's my comment. If that piece of ground gets clear cut, it is going to be a huge impact on the township. We are very close to Morris Road. Morris Road just got that project done, which got trees taken down. And that corner, you don't realize it because it's so blended, is so green. And if we take out every tree in there, it is going to feel it's going to feel as big as the Blue Route clearing. So my feeling is, yes, do clear for the stormwater. And if we have to take down a few of the ash trees that are in the other ones in that area, outside the LOD, I'm okay with that. But if we clear cut that whole corner, I think we're asking for a whole lot of pushback, and then a disruption to wildlife. I mean, there are fox that live in there. There's all kinds of things, birds. That's just kind of the feeling I get, gut feeling from what's going to happen and the pushback from the township. I mean,
very well said, Claire.
Good.
Residents.
Well said.
Yeah, no, that's good input, Claire. Thank you. Seth?
Yeah, Steve, could you scroll up a little bit? I just want to clarify one thing. So John, you're saying the replacements are being calculated from any tree in that poor condition category. Is that right?
No, these are for the fair and good conditions. Anything that was poor was,
right.
was
Yeah.
either dead, so they weren't being counted, correct?
Right, okay.
Which is a total of 148.
Got it. And out of those good and fair, were there any good and fair conditions ash trees?
No.
Okay.
Couple beautiful sycamores, but they're right on top of the proposed grading for the stormwater management.
Right, okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with Claire. You know, if you look at the satellite view of this area, I mean, it's really the only woodland area for a little while, so I could see that being a huge impact to wildlife and canopy and everything else. And I'm leaning towards, you know, do what we need to for the stormwater limit of disturbance area. And in agreement with, you know, if there are hazardous trees outside of the limit of disturbance, let's take care of those now along with this project, but leave what we can just to have as little impact as possible.
Excellent.
Okay, James?
Hello, happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. Yeah, I think Claire said it well. I think if you come in from, what is that, South Devon Road, they can easily clear out where the stormwater is going without damaging too much in the back area. Cost effective, if the ash trees are going to come down at some point, probably more cost effective now to do it all at once with one group. And there could be more damage back there anyway with all the excavators. It's a big project, so unless you really, I guess if they put up the tree protection, then we can save the other trees, so that won't be a problem.
And they would.
They would, okay.
They'd be required.
The other thing is if the board or whoever decides to clear cut the whole thing, I question for John Hosback, would you be able to pick trees to reforest this area? And could we make this a shade tree project to reforest? And we'd actually save money without having.
So I was waiting for you to finish, and I have a proposal based on Claire's motion here. So obviously everything that Steve and Miss Dennis pointed out in regards to stormwater management has to be cleared. Okay, we have those counts up there. In regards to outside the LOD, I just flipped over to my notes. There is 9 really bad, dangerous ash trees outside the LOD that should be removed yesterday. Why don't we remove those 9 in accordance with and I'll paint them with the project. And then annually, I will inspect for progression of decay and decline and all that good stuff. And every fall, we make this part of our replanting program through our shade tree fund and all the millions of dollars of donations that Eileen's going to get us in the next couple of months here. And we will put a set amount of trees every year into this program so that if we're removing a small percentage, maybe 10 or 15 a year, we're replacing every fall so that we're not denuding the place and we're gaining what our long-term objective is that Mr. Norsini just pointed out.
Can I add to that? Because I have one concern. So first off, I'm really thrilled to hear Claire, Seth, and James' thoughts, because I think it would be so drastic to clear cut that entire area. I think it would be I think it would be very startling to people, no matter what information we push out. But so from the guy who's got to bid this and so when we bid, we're bidding very exactly what has to happen. I don't know when this is going to get funded for sure, and we're still in DEP permitting. So that could be a year before this project or longer comes to fruition. So if there's 9 trees that need to come down sooner than later, I suggest that become part of Public Works tree removal list. Don't keep it as part of this project. My recommendation is you segregate it. If we're only going to work within the LOD, we're going to only work within the LOD.
Yeah.
If there's something that needs to be addressed
Understood.
outside the LOD, that should be done through the regular means that we have.
Got
Because
it.
this is stormwater money,
We-
right? And it's one thing if we're gonna use the whole property, but it's really not to be used for selective tree clearing going in and out of another of this property. So my thought is, from a bidding standpoint and a safety standpoint, if they need to come down, we need to talk to Mike and Ricky and get them on the list, because it could be quite some time till this project reaches fruition.
Got it. Matt, any comments?
I think I've said my piece.
Super. I have no additional comments to add. My motion would be that we approve to remove the trees within the LOD, and other hazardous trees can be handled typically per the process. Let Public Works take them down. Motion to approve. All in favor? Aye.
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 Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Steve,
you.
North Wayne Sidewalk Project.
Okay, so this is, can you folks see this now? I hope I switched over properly.
Yes.
Yes.
Uh-oh, lost my plan though. Here we go. Oh. I have John's letter. There we go. No, hang on a
Yep,
second.
you're back.
For some reason, where is our, I have our,
So the sidewalk project to the left there,
yeah, it's just comes up as John.
same thing,
It's all the way to the right, Steve, to the right. There you go. No, it's still coming out.
same thing.
Do you want to just describe it to us?
Actually, Ian, do you see?
Or we just table it till next month?
Well, actually, this is one that we really need your input on. So I'll give you the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah,
The
please.
township-
Hey, guys, no, I want to give you some context. This is why I try to move this around. One, I too need to share the airtime more. I realized that in the prior presentation. So that's why I want to call on people. So Steve and John, I'm going to ask you to be a little bit more concise so that other people have a chance to talk. What we still need to get through tonight is 476 Gateway, the South Wayne parking lot. So we still have 2 more to do after this one. So which out of those 3 is there one that's hotter?
North Wayne Sidewalk Project.
Okay, sounds good.
So I'm sorry the plans aren't up. I'll be very brief. The
Okay.
township received, we have bond money for a sidewalk along North Wayne Avenue from Woodsworth Court to Eagle Road. That's roughly around the different township line to Eagle Road. As part of that project of installing the new curb and new sidewalk, there's also retaining walls. Here's the tree, I should share that. So the arborist was out there. There are trees to be removed. They're noted on the plan. The tree table is noted on the plan. The only problem is we have no room to plant the compensatory trees. And John, total trees to be, as he has here, inserted into the future is 8.
Yep.
So based on what we're removing, we need to replant 8 trees. There, if you look at the lay of the land, there is no ability to do that within the right of way once this project goes in. So it's twofold. We want to alert the Shade Tree Commission to this project and get your blessing, and then let you know we have 8 trees we need to plant that we would look to you for where they would go.
Yep. So in hindsight, the township owes us 8 trees. We can use them for the fall planting.
Yeah, I think we're good. We have identified places between last night and tonight.
Correct.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We now have 6 with
Absolutely.
4 of them being parks. Then there's Garrett Hill and then also the Radnor Trail. So you
Correct.
almost think of them as 5 of them as parks. So we should have plenty of room for these 8 trees.
We got them.
Okay. So how does that work? Will Bob Tate transfer money into our fund for 8 trees? Let's say $500, $600 a tree. Is that how that works?
No, I think what'll happen is,
We would put it in the bid.
yeah, you designate where you want the trees and we'll get it done as part of the project.
Okay, that's fine. I'm okay with that. Others, what any comments or questions?
No, that sounds good to me. I like that
And
plan.
honestly, we might not even include it in the bid. If it's only 8 trees, we'll get a price where you want them installed and we'll charge it to that line item account.
And Eileen, that goes right into our looking for spaces for this. So it's great to have, it's great. We'll find it. We'll find space for it.
Yeah, yeah.
I knew you would.
Okay, super. Any other? So I guess we need to do a motion to approve that.
That would be great, please.
Okay, so I would put forward a motion to approve the project presented with the stipulation that 8 trees will be planted at the designated spots per the STC as part of the project, not as part of our 2021 budget. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, super.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Sure, Steve, Dennis.
Great. And then Steve, we have 2 more, the 476 Gateway project, which we did talk about last night a little bit, and then the South Wayne parking lot.
Okay, yes. So the Gateway project, the 476 Gateway project, the Shade Tree Commission was heavily involved with Jonathan Alderson and Weeds Inc. in the plan that was going to be set forth, as was the Board of Commissioners. So they did their seeding and spraying last year. The Type L seed mix came up fantastic on the banks, as you can see. My fingers are crossed that whatever else he did is going to come up on the plateau. So we're waiting for that. And there's additional work. So all this has been done gratis by Weeds Inc. And John, what's the name of the tree company? All Seasons?
All Seasons.
Right? They're the ones who have done this work gratis, as well as Jonathan Alderson. I want to make sure he gets props. So they did do their seeding over the winter. I'm hoping that it's going to germinate. I don't know if they were able to get in the frost seeding of the wildflower. And
They did get it done, Steve.
he noted he might come back this spring. So
I didn't think that was done.
we'll see. We'll see what happens there. And to Seth's question about planting trees on the bank, that's a big no from PennDOT.
Yeah. Yeah, we heard about that last night. Okay.
Steve,
So
I did confirm the wildflowers were frost seeded.
Yeah, he had told me he did it, John, but he was not sure if he was going to have to overseed again in the spring.
Okay. So that being the case, guys, as of last year, we owed the Board of Commissioners basically a plan that would say, what would we do with this land? Assuming, hey, that you plant lots of trees, you plant a nominal amount of trees, or you just leave it as is, kind of like a 3-tier type of plan and what the budget would be. And that was my interpretation all regarding trees. So I think given what PennDOT is saying, that just takes it right out of scope and we leave the land as is with the, charitable work that Weeds, All Seasons, and Jonathan Alderson are doing. Does anybody see, an alternate plan there?
I have one question and one thought. So what happens if trees come back up, from stumps or otherwise? What
We're
would,
required to spray the stumps. That was one of the requirements of PennDOT, so that those leaders don't come off the stumps. But if you folks go down Darby Paoli Road right before Sawmill, did anybody do that in the summertime and see that gorgeous mix of flowers that were there? Well, that was a sewer project we did, and that place looked great. I mean, it was beautiful. We got more calls from people saying how fantastic that looked. What did you do? It was a sanitary sewer project. So
where is that, Steve?
Darby Paoli Road, as you're heading east, right before Sawmill Road, on your right-hand side, it was gorgeous. And that was a seed mix. Yep, it was a seed mix specified by Meliora. It was nothing special. I did pass that on to Gretchen Grobel. She had asked for it. But my hope is that the wildflower and native grass mix that Jonathan specified for the plateau will look like that, because it's absolutely gorgeous when it comes in.
Okay.
so outside of the leaders, let's say there's a couple seeds nestling in there waiting to pop out and grow some trees. What happens if trees come up? Like, is Radnor Township going to to cut down, any small saplings that rise out of the ground?
Well, what we're gonna end up contracting with Weeds Inc. is, so as part of the maintenance of what he's done is spraying once or twice a year. And that'll be the stumps and anything that is not what was planted.
Okay.
So I'm not saying, Seth, there isn't going to be some volunteer growth, but we're supposed to address that.
Got it. And then my second part to this is knowing that PennDOT doesn't want trees, but are they okay with shrubbery and flowers? Like, is that an option?
Well, they approved the plan we put before them, right? They approved that plan and they told us they didn't want trees. So if there's another plan that the Shade Tree Commission wants to put together, I will gladly bring that to them. So I'm not going to get into what they don't. I know what they approved, which is what we did.
Steve, if I may, Steve, Darren Ultimo said no woody material. So that includes all shrubs and trees.
So, I mean, they're happy with what we put forth. And Darren Ultimo is the right-of-way guy, and he was the one who was very adamant, is that, no, we don't want trees in there. So,
yeah, so maybe just a question. I'd have to pull up the file, but the number 462 sticks in my head. So maybe that's how many trees we took out, or that's how many has to be replaced. I don't know what to do with that.
I don't know how many trees came out. I wasn't part of that. Nor was the arbor. I don't know. And I have no idea the amount of trees that came out of there.
I have that. Yeah.
But I know that we don't have the ability to reforest that.
No, not that area, but I'm just thinking, do we make that part of our 1,000 target and say this is how we're making good on what the township accidentally took out? I'm trying to piece that piece of the puzzle together.
You mean because we lost that canopy?
Yeah. Like if we were to hold the township accountable to the same thing we hold residents accountable, the idea was always like, hey, after we seed this area, we would plant trees, and we just need to come to the township with a number. But now we have a requirement by PennDOT, hey, you can't plant trees there. So do we look to make good on this and plant these trees elsewhere? Does this somehow become part of our let's plant 1,000 tree target? I don't know. I'm putting it out there to see what others think.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think originally when we were talking about the plans, to replant trees, I know that the funds, obviously weren't budgeted for, and we would have to find the money to make that happen, right? So I still think that would be a challenge for us, but I do think we should push back and see if we can find the money wherever it may exist to replant the trees that were taken down. I think that's only doing good on what we should do, and also staying true to the ordinance.
Yeah, and I do have the numbers here. So it was 268 trees removed, 422 trees required, and 144 of them would have to be large canopy.
And are we saying that the responsible party would be Radnor Township?
Yes.
Radnor doesn't own the land. It's PennDOT's land. So does that even apply to Radnor, even though we ended up taking them down?
We're responsible for the action, though. So
The township took them down or authorized them to be taken.
Right. And no matter who owns it, it's still a part of Radnor, right?
Yeah.
So I'll play devil's advocate. Does the Shade Tree Fund tree plantings count towards the compensatory trees for that action? I'm just throwing that out there because.
No, I mean, I guess it could.
I mean, because I don't know. I mean, that's how many trees was that, Eileen?
400, 200, I'll use round numbers. They're a little easier to remember. So let's say 260 removed, 420 new trees required, 140 have to be large canopy. So, I mean, realistically, like 3 to 4 years of our fall plantings would equal about 422 new trees.
Mhm.
And we would cover the large canopy. That shouldn't be a problem.
So are you trying to just get like that replacement into our canopy, no matter where they go? Is that kind of the thought behind this, Eileen?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I'm just trying to
That would
figure
make
out, like, do we need to make good on this? Because we always thought we could plant tree whips there, even small trees, on the top of
Right.
that island, but that's not the case. Okay, so we don't owe anything to the township regarding a planting plan. I think we're good there. But do we need to, figure out a way to make good on the compensatory requirements? I don't know.
I like the idea of it, because also the optics of it for residents and township is, it was such a shock to so many people that if we came through and said, we are going to make good on this compensatory trees in the next 5 years, it shows sort of a willingness.
Yeah, I have an idea along those lines. Claire, you kind of triggered it with optics. If we have to plant 422 new trees per the requirement, what if we tried to get those through grants? Maybe it won't obviously it won't happen in a year. And Frank, I'm thinking of you as our grant writer, but I know that's a tall bogey, but maybe it's something we do over, I don't know, 10 years, so that the taxpayers aren't paying twice to take them down and put them up.
Makes sense.
I like.
It's an interesting story
Yeah.
you're bringing to the person that's going to fund this. They're going to ask questions about who was responsible. Was anyone taken accountable? Was anyone accountable for it? So there'd be some spinning going on.
Would you mean when we ask for the grant?
Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking that we wouldn't need to disclose that in the grant. It would just be, hey, like, let's say we want to regreen Radnor Township or the parks. We would just keep.
Oh, yeah, but we're gonna,
just like you did last year and this year.
yeah,
and just
we're gonna do that anyway.
exactly. And then, but we make that kind of our bogey, our goal. Like, let's chip away at this 422 target, but let's do it not at the expense of taxpayers. Let's do it let's incent ourselves to reach that goal via grants or
Donations.
Yeah, maybe donations, but yeah.
I think it would be tough connecting a donation or a grant. And maybe you're saying don't do that, but it might be smokes and mirrors. If you're not going to connect it to 476 and the deforestation that took there, it's just going to be business as normal for us.
Correct, but it's almost, it incents us to maybe, instead of just getting 24 trees a year where we struggle with places to put them, maybe we really say, okay, let's go after 422. Let's make that our bogey. And maybe it takes us 5 years to get there, maybe 10 years to get there. And now we've identified places to put them, like all these other parks. And that's how we're trying to make good on our tree canopy.
Yes, that's what we would do. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But there's no connection with 476.
Other than the goal number of 422. If we can get 422 trees via grants, that would be the only connection.
Yeah, okay.
Just the bogey, yeah.
Got it.
Okay. Others, what do you think? Matt, Jane?
Well,
Beth?
I think we're missing an opportunity if we don't try to make things right by what happened at 476. I think it's I talked to people in Haverford, I talked to people in Tredyffrin, I talked to people in Philly, and they all know about this, and they can't believe it. They can't believe this happened in Radnor. And so, like, I think we do put it up there. I think we put it out there. Like, this is the amount of trees we lost. We're going to replace those trees somehow, some way.
Mm-hmm.
And it may take us 10 years, but we're going to do it. And I think that's a good story to tell across the region. It makes us look good. And I think we need to look good by this example.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since it never came before us, but it did happen on our watch. So,
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially after Mr. Capella you know, denudes West Wayne and also that sidewalk, you know.
Yeah.
At least we have him here. We can throw him under the bus.
Sure.
I won't do
Please
that,
do.
Dennis. Never.
Thank you.
So, any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree completely with Matt, what he just said. I think
Okay.
he's right on. I do have, I would still like to see, I understand that everybody's saying you can't plant there. Is there an agreement that says it or something, or is it just a verbal agreement? If it's, I'm sorry, Steve, let me say a couple things. If it was just a verbal agreement or something, I think we should call our representative and say, listen, this is what we want, and have her or him work it out. I think
James, I'm just going to stop you midstream. So Ultimos told us at the meeting, and, you know, I've been friends with him for a while. He looked at us, me and Steve, and said, you know, I really could make you pay per inch for every one of these trees. And when he did the math, it was over $1 million that would have came out of taxpayers' money. So it was either, hey, we're going to let you slide. You do the meadow. We don't want any new trees. We don't want any stumps. And this is going to disappear. I think if we bring it up again and push the envelope, one of the peers above him is going to say, you know what, you're right. We're going to plant trees, but we want the narrows up front, the $1.2 million of removals that you guys.
I understand that, but I think the representative is going to have a lot to say with that as well. And I think that it wouldn't go to that area.
Well, James, if I can just add in, PennDOT has been very good to work with on this. Let me be honest with you. They've been very good to work with on a situation that was tough to happen. My suggestion is we abide by the rules. These are the folks that do it every day. They have specific reasons why they don't want trees up there. To go to a state representative and come top down on that, they obviously, everybody can do what they want to do. I suggest, or my recommendation to Shade Tree Commission is, we abide by the requirements that PennDOT gave us. That was one of the very first requirements they gave us, along with the type L grass. Let's see what it looks like when it comes in.
I respect that, Steve, completely. But I still think that there should be trees there. There's been trees there for as long as I can remember. I totally respect what you're saying. But we are also, I mean, John, I would imagine agree, we're in a woodland area environment, correct?
We are. I'm 100% on board.
We're not in a meadow, a prairie area. We're not in the Midwest. This is going to take a lot of maintenance. It needs to be cut down every year. If it's not maintained in 5 years, it's going to be a complete mess.
I want the entire area reforested. That was always our objective. The problem is that it's twofold. We don't own the land. That's PennDOT's land, and we trespassed onto their property. So,
well,
I mean,
we didn't though, and I don't think anybody here had anything to do with that. It was one person, and we didn't do it. So
it was still under the guidance of a township manager. So, I mean, at the current time, he was employed by the township.
Well, look, I don't think we need to talk about, to put blame on this. I think it's a bigger discussion. Yeah. So we know PennDOT's marching orders, they came from the district AD for maintenance. My recommendation is we respect that requirement. The board can go whichever way they want to here, on this, but I suggest we for now respect that request. And if Matt's idea is to go after those trees through whatever way, using this as the rallying call for those trees, that's fine. That's up to the Shade Tree Commission. But I suggest, let's see what this looks like. Let's respect their wishes. They've worked very well with us to this point.
I like the idea of putting a note in our files for revisiting it. You know, things change year after year. So let's see how the meadow comes in. let's see how it shapes up. And I do like the idea of putting forth, let's do those compensatory trees the best way we can, and then revisit PennDOT and work with them. Maybe they'll change their mind as we go along.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea because James, I understand where you're coming from. I just think if we push this now, we're not going to get anywhere. But I do like Claire's idea that, people and things change over time. So let's look to revisit this even next year.
Exactly.
Can we put it in our goals, Eileen? You know how we have our goals for a year, just as like revisit the 476
right
plan?
Yeah. Yep. I'm just making some notes. Okay. Anything else on the 476 topic? Did I miss anybody? Oh, it's Seth, because James sounded a lot like Seth. Or Seth
No
sounded a
worries.
lot like me.
I don't really have any more to add. I've been going back and forth in my head about, if we should push the township to find some funds here or there that they could scrape together for the Shade Tree Commission to help put towards that 420 number, or if we, find the funds through grants,
right,
to avoid the, double jeopardy, if you will. So I still think we should, use the opportunity to maybe ask Bill White or whomever makes sense to say, hey, are there any discretionary funds that might exist somewhere where we could, carve out $10, $15, $20,000 to help put towards this?
I would
Maybe
like to
not.
add that due to COVID, we're really on quite a spending.
Yep,
There's
and
a
I
lot
understand.
of projects that have been suspended for 2021 due to
Yep,
lack.
and I understand that, but it doesn't hurt to ask, right? So that's my only thought, rather than not ask, right? And not know, just ask once, and if a no's a no, a no's a no, but I think we should.
and
The
what
process.
and what specifically, sorry guys, Seth, what specifically would we be asking Bill White?
If, based off of this event, if the township wants to make good, if you will, if there are, understanding that there's probably zero discretionary funds, but if there are funds that were earmarked for, something that may not be happening or whatever, if there are funds available that could go partly towards this, just to help that with that number, I think we should
I
ask.
Yeah, I think I'm assuming the answer is going to be no, because like Bob Tate, when I talked to him, we're only getting $5,000.
Right.
year.
I mean,
Because-
and I understand that, and I think that's even more of a reason to just ask, knowing that our budget's been cut, but also we have to, we're not solely responsible, but we are taking on the compensatory replanting. Just, I mean,
Yeah, I can ask
I don't
him.
want to lose this opportunity. That's all. If
Okay.
one does exist.
Okay.
And I think that we need a story. And right now, the story is we're planting flowers. We've lost canopy and now we're getting flowers. If we could have a story that says we're very concerned about the loss of canopy and we're going to be putting it elsewhere, it would be something that we can get out to the residents, that we're not just ignoring what's happening. Maybe Steve's right. People are going to be thrilled with the meadow type look up there. But we as a Shade Tree Commission should be, crying in our beer about the lost canopy that we had. So
I don't disagree with you. I'm just going by, these are the parameters that were set by the property owner. And that's the only reason I'm saying I abide by that for now.
And I understand that. I'm just trying to put out by abiding with that, we put some sort of alternative story that we're going to restore that canopy elsewhere in the township. Which I think is what I'm hearing people saying.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess
Absolutely.
maybe another way to look at this too is all of the stormwater funding and projects that are happening, are any of those projects, with the one that we just reviewed tonight, including, obviously we're replanting trees, and I think I recall us discussing what's the type of planting when we plant trees along riverbeds, stream beds.
Riparian.
Riparian planting.
Riparian, right? There's a few of those projects happening where we're adding net new trees. So maybe we collectively think of that as our potential compensatory. So I don't know, just ways where the township is replanting more than exists.
This would also be a nice story, Frank, you made me think of this, that we share with Molly Gallagher, Mr. Norsini, as something that she can include in her communications.
Yeah, so we my request is we talk with Bill White and then see what we put out. So Molly has, she does a fantastic job and she's great at putting out stuff for us. So yeah, I think that's always an option.
Seems like poor Matt's taking the brunt of all these complaints from people who see that bare soil.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why. Don't understand it. I just count them.
Yeah. Okay. So guys, I think we landed in a good spot with that. I'll send out a note that I was just typing up just so we'll all be on the same page. Right. So the last item we had was South Wayne parking lot. And
okay. Again, very briefly, we laid out the design to Mr. Matt Golis, who came up with a fantastic planting scheme. And we actually passed that on to our consultant. And that will be the scheme for that project, should that get funded, when that gets funded. That's
Great job, Matt.
$1 million project. So these are huge projects,
How much is it, Steve?
If I remember, it's probably around 3 million.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And when does that go to funding?
Nope.
So
Another
the
stormwater
manager put forth a funding plan. It's not none of these large projects are funded yet. So
Okay.
we're still working on that.
Okay. But sometime 2021 funds will be requested and then we'll know at least when it gets slotted.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, that sounds super.
And South Wayne parking lot, that's a stormwater project? Did I hear that correctly? Okay.
Yes, it's a stormwater. It's a twofold stormwater project. There's conveyance up north South Wayne Avenue, New West Wayne, to take some of that runoff and put it in the system under the middle school. And in essence, the entire subsurface of the South Wayne parking lot will become a stormwater management system.
Wow.
You won't see it. It'll be all covered up. It'll all be pretty with new paving, street lights, and Matt's plants.
Eileen, you have this typed up already?
No, just the 476 one. That's
okay,
all.
I was gonna say, I just got the email. I was like, wow, you're fast.
Yeah, just 476. I needed to do that to keep us all on the same page. Oh, and I wanted to give everybody the presentation to remind everybody of the 476 because we presented that to STC and the board back in early 2020. So it'll ground everybody. Everybody will have the same set of facts.
Right. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, no problem. Anything else, guys? That was the last topic on our agenda.
That's
And
it.
Matt, thanks for going through and putting together that planting plan for South Wayne. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just went over what some best practice has been in the last few years, and especially with our climate changing and stuff. And so, yeah, I think people will like it.
Great.
I think it's actually going to work for our township public works too. Their ease of use was part of this thinking. So
that's great.
Can't wait to see it. Hope it comes to fruition.
Yeah, me too.
You and me both, and Dennis.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else, folks, before we close out this St. Patty's Day meeting?
Great work, everybody. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's
Thanks for all the
Day.
work that goes into this.
Luck of
Thank
the
you.
Irish.
Thank you.
Guinness for
Have a good
everyone.
night.
Iron go bra.
Take
Yeah.
care.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.